webinar. I'm so glad that so many of you were able to attend. My name is Mark O'Keefe, and I'm the founder of the Innovation Beehive. Originally, I worked as a buyer and then moved into human resources roles before moving into the dark side of consultancy, working in the UK, Europe, and then Australia and the United States. I've always been fascinated around leadership and understanding how leaders can really change an organization. If you change the dial on a leadership, I believe you can change the organization. But there are some leaders who absolutely, in times of disruption, in times of chaos, and in times of uncertainty, are able to remain focused and bring their people with them and achieve the best possible results in that time. And over the last 6 months, we've been actually speaking to leaders who have experienced very disruptive times, whether it's in their industry because of tech or digital, whether it's as a result of the last financial crash. And actually the lessons that we launched at Google just under 2 weeks ago, and they seem more relevant than ever in the times that we find ourselves in. So, hello, Mark from the Innovation Beehive, and I'm joined by Angela. Angela, do you want to introduce yourself and say hello?
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm just a voice and you can't actually see me, but I do exist. I really do. And I put my Innovation Beehive. I've put the logo all around my my office. I'm sorry you can't see that.
We'll share a photograph of Angela in the post email.
Yeah, that's nice. Try and get a photograph of yourself at the screen, and we'll do a bit of a WebEx selfie.
But this is what life is like now, so we've got to get used to it.
This is the new normal, and we'll work in that way. You will see Angela though in this picture here. So on the right-hand side, the lady in the white spotted blouse, that is Angela, and that's me in the white shirt behind. We had a team day earlier on this week as the Innovation Beehive, and that was the end of our team session where we actually were having a really thinky day. We were all in our head all day thinking about strategy, thinking about our digital offering, thinking how we can love our customers and our clients even more at the moment in these really, really tough times. So yes, someone said you can see Zach in the background there. So we decided that after that really thinky head day, we need a bit of health. So we actually brought in a laughter coach who did an hour's deep laughter with us. And one thing I learned, I think I'm going to be drawing upon this resource over the next few weeks, is after 20 seconds of laughing, actually your brain does not know whether it's real or whether it's forced. You still get the endorphin kick in. So we'll be talking over the next couple of weeks actually about how we can remain well and take care of our well-being during these times we might be isolated or working in more isolation than we're normally used to. And I, for one, will be certainly sharing that tip and practicing it. But the Innovation Beehive, when we're not doing laughter, focuses on 3 things. Firstly, around innovation, so pure play innovation. What product, service, experience can we create for a customer? What need do they have that's expressed or unexpressed? And then culture, how do you align an organization around a common purpose, a value set? Particularly for retail and hospitality businesses, how do you create a culture of service? And then leadership, how do you both create a culture and lead for innovation? And separately, how do you lead, particularly with an eye on agility and in disruptive times? So those are the core areas that we focus on in our business that's been operating now for 11 years. Yeah, great. Okay, so moving on, why are we talking about this now? Well, initially, actually, this piece of research, when we started it about 6 months, was looking at how the world has changed significantly over the last couple of years. One of our clients, the World Economic Forum, Charles Schwab, who is the CEO, talked about and coined the phrase, the 4th Industrial Revolution. And what he meant by that was that, in the beginning, we had what's described as the age of simplicity. So you had a problem, you created a solution. Often it was a button that you pressed and you went, right, here's my problem. I push that button and therefore I'm able to fix that problem. And then we moved into kind of, industrial revolutions, you might know it, operating at scale, Taylorism, systematic thinking, and you were able to push that button or several buttons many times and ultimately fix problems, manufacture, and then grow at scale. The world got slightly more complex in that, much more connectivity, and much more complex problems. And that saw the rise of what we call the age of the expert. And this is around the rise of people like the Innovation Beehive, the rise of McKinsey's, the Boston Consulting Groups. You had a problem in the organization, you could still tell what the problem was, but you were no longer able, because it was so complex and because you just were focusing on what you were doing in your business, you're no longer able to actually come up with the solution in your own organization. So what you often did is you went outside and asked someone with an outside point of view to come in, design the solution for you, which you would then implement and scale. That's the age of the expert. And now we're moving into what we call the age of uncertainty, not because of the pandemic that's happening at the moment, but actually it does resonate though in terms of that language, but because there's so much change going on at the moment, the pace of change is so quick, there's so much disruption, and traditionally we'd be talking about disruption in terms of digital and machine learning and AI and something like this, but so much change that you can no longer really be clear about what the problem is. You might feel the symptoms and the output of the problem in your organization, but you're not necessarily able to identify one simple and easily targeted problem to solve. So this is why we believe as an innovation company, innovation is so important. And we particularly believe in what's going on globally at the moment. Innovation mindset is so important, because operating in that age of uncertainty, what you need is to trial things very quickly. You need to rapidly experiment. You need to innovate scrappy solutions, trial them very quickly, low cost, very far up the funnel, so your failure is at low risk possible. And then you're able to identify what the right solution is, because you have to work through many, many different potential problems to identify what the connection is between those problems at the moment. And what you want to do is avoid the age of chaos, where things start to fall apart and you start to lose control of the narrative, or you start to lose control of your business. And there's a comment here actually from Yaroslav. Many manufacturers are moving towards services. Their core products can disappear in the next few years due to technological development. Yeah, look at IBM. I mean, absolutely, a classic example there. So great. Please do keep your comments coming in. I really appreciate it. And we know that people are on the line this afternoon as well. So thanks so much for that. So then we are absolutely living in massively disrupted times. The fact that we were said, where are you? And most people probably didn't say in a conference room or at my desk that, like us, you're sitting in a dining room in your house, hoping the internet holds up when the whole of the street is on Facebook or watching WebExes themselves. We're living in massively disrupted times. And we believe actually that the mindset that we're going to share with you and some of the behaviors and practices that we're going to share with you will help you over the coming days, weeks, however long we are in this process together, to be able to come through it, to lead yourself and lead your teams and your people as well. For when we come out, blinking into the light, reset and reinvent ourselves. So, Angela, I'm going to hand over to you.
So we've got a question for you. What great examples of leadership have you seen recently? Now, it might be in the last 24 hours, it might be in the last week, but we've been seeing leaders across the world globally. I've been getting emails from CEOs from my local supermarket. What examples of leadership have you seen lately? And it could be within your own organization, it could be in another country, a different industry. What great examples have you seen? And can you pop them on the chat box so we can all see them?
So you'll see on the screen here, we're going to use the technology of the whiteboard. So as you comment on the chat box, we will transcribe them to the whiteboard. So, when we used to be in a room together and someone would write on a flip chart, well, that's old news now. We're an innovation company. Imagine this is your virtual flip chart. But we need, rather than us writing up there, we want to draw on the wisdom of the crowd and crowdsource. What great examples of leadership have you seen recently?
Being brave and saying what needed to be said. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great comment here by Tanya. Thank you for that. The Italian Prime Minister taking the lead and shutting his country down to ensure their survival. I think there's something there about grasping the nettle, isn't there? And being brave, absolutely, absolutely. And some, you know, he would have had to have had a dark night of the soul to think, I'm doing this ahead of every other, you know, prime minister across the world. He might have even, I'm sure, had conversation with his European colleagues about that. Emmanuel Macron from Natalie here saying that he will not allow businesses to fail. Absolutely. Thank you for that. We're waiting for our Chancellor, obviously, to make an announcement this afternoon. As a small business, we'll be very interested in what he says there. The Louis Vuitton owner, absolutely wonderful here. We've got an example. Thank you, Laura. Louis Vuitton, LVMH, making hand sanitizers instead of perfumes to supply hospitals for free. And I think there is a real, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing, you know, examples of people who are being just more altruistic, more human in these really difficult times. I'm organising our village volunteer process so that we're able to feed some of our more isolated or vulnerable members of our society here. I think we'll see some real moments of light in this dark period. Allowing leaders, says Alan, hello Alan, allowing leadership that doesn't come from the de facto leader. Yeah, absolutely. So leadership actually can come from anyone and anywhere at the moment. We've got Kevin saying, Leo Varadkar in Ireland will damage our economy, but our economy will recover and people can't. Absolutely. So making the hard priority and judgment call there. And then we have Paul, Microsoft creating a free version of Teams for anyone to use. That's fantastic. We use a lot of technology in the work that we do. And we've been exploring using Teams with our clients as well, but having, you know, taking your core products and saying, this isn't about the money at the moment, it's about how we work together and what we can do for the world, and the history that we create is fantastic. So Madeleine McCaffrey, our COO, showing vulnerability, understanding and honesty on Mental Health Day. Yeah, showing up and sharing how you feel. I mean, Madeleine, if there's anything else you can add there around what your COO showed, that would be great. How did that manifest itself?
We had one from Fiona earlier, Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, responding to the terrorist attacks a few months ago.
Great.
Yeah, her press conference really sticks in my memory, actually. I remember she said Kia Ora, and I've always remembered that. It was so powerful, the conference itself. It's an interesting one there.
From Laura, I'm not sure I get the Italian right from an Italian speaker, but Andrà tutta bene, accompanied by a rainbow symbol, is a slogan being launched by Italian children who are creating art and banners to hang from their balconies and windows in solidarity of being locked at home in quarantine. And actually, I shared on our chat, which we'll tell you more about later on our virtual chat, that, you know, you may have seen it, but I shared it at the weekend where families in Italy and people in Italy are singing opera to each other at balconies to keep each other from feeling too isolated. Paul or Ned's the chairman offering their time for free within the company that significantly...
That was Italian. How about Cordian?
Sorry, Angela?
What amazed me about that was how many Italians had accordions in their spare room.
And that point about Ned's chairman offering their time for free, we were talking to a private equity company today that work in hospitality, and obviously, you know, they're challenged at the moment in what they're doing, but we were talking to one of the partners there, and he's said, you know, we've got some skills, we're very capitalized, that we're skilled at running businesses in tough times, and they're hoping to reach out to other organizations that aren't in their portfolio to say, how can we help you? So again, more examples of people, you know, bringing us into the light. Thank you for that. I think we've got some good examples there, which probably if we ran this a couple of weeks ago would have struggled at.
It would have been very different.
Yeah, very different. So I'll hand back to Angela.
Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful that everyone had great examples and they were immediate. You didn't have to spend long thinking about them. So yes, thank you for that. When I've been working in leadership development now for over 20 years, and I've seen all sorts of models come along and all sorts of supposedly new ways of thinking about leadership. But in many ways, they've just been sort of slightly evolving and slightly different from the one before. But now it feels like it's, you know, it's the new kind of leadership we need now is a huge step forward. It's a very different way of being that you know, we're not just talking about we need to learn the odd new skill. We need to lead in a very different way. And the next slide describes it nicely. That it used to be that when we ran leadership programs, we'd teach people, now this is what you need to think, and this is how you behave, and this is how you put your strategy together, and this is how you manage your team. And there was very much a right way of doing things. And leaders just had to learn, right, this is how we do it, and we'll go off and practice it and do it now. Whereas now leaders need to be much more agile and much more creative and much more on the ball of how they constantly learn, how they constantly manage their teams and get the best out of people, and how they constantly manage themselves as well. So they need to actually learn how to think for themselves, if that doesn't sound too insulting, but there's more about, you know, they need to be able to respond so quickly now, that it's being able to think and know how to think, and find the right problem to find the right solution.
And I think when I started at management, I lecture at a couple of business management schools. When I started doing that, the idea of learning how to be would be quite an anathema. So, you know, I teach on an MBA. We've done strategy days. We've done finance days. I did pure play day on innovation based on my book. But the idea of actually talking about managing your state as a leader and how you hold yourself and the energy that you give out to people, I can't even imagine, you know, when I started teaching at Central St. Martin 10 years ago, that would ever have been on the agenda. But actually how you manage your state and how honest and transparent you are, and being knowledgeable of the impact you have on others, so they can be empathetic to you and you can be empathetic to them. A total new way of operating as leaders.
And now that we've got so many more people sort of working from home, there's got to be a new level of trust between people. You've got so many people feeling insecure now. I've had 2 emails already today telling me the school's not closing, but tomorrow year 8 can't come in, and the day after year 9 can't come in, and the day after that everything is you know, changing all the time. I'm trying to click to the next slide. but what I wanted to say was that leaders have to be really showing integrity now and being open and transparent when there's a time when everything feels chaotic and people are looking to their leaders in these VUCA times. Everyone know what VUCA means: the volatile, uncertain, chaotic and ambiguous times where things are changing all the time. We need our leaders to give us reassurance in these times. And that's tough because, you know, we're not confident ourselves because there's so much uncertainty going on. So we need to show that we've actually got a plan, even though the plan is going to be changing all the time. So organizations and leaders need to be much more agile. So in the days when we used to write the strategic plan and then review it once a year, that just doesn't work anymore. We've got to be time. And leaders can say, well, there's too much going on, there's too much difference. They need to go, right, in this chaos, in this ambiguity, what can we do? What can we do to respond to it? They need to be proactive and take it on board. Need to be 4.0 leaders. So what Mock was talking about, we're in a 4.0 industry. We need to be 4.0 leaders now, and we're going to talk about what that means, so that they build resilience in their teams and organizations. It used to be when you talked about resilience in an organization, it was have you got enough cash flow to last for when, you know, you have a tough Christmas or a little sales dip. Well, it's much more volatile now, and individuals need to be more resilient, and the teams support each other to be more resilient so that the organization can survive. And then you're actively influencing the volatility and the chaos that's out there. You're more in control, and it becomes a more virtuous circle because you're actually making the impact, not just reacting to it.
So talking to those leaders who operate effectively and thrive in very ambiguous, complex and volatile times, the challenges that many of us who either lead teams or have to lead ourselves are facing at the moment. Interviewing them over the past 6 months, we started to notice 5 key H's that started to emerge. They were around how they lead in head, leading in heart, leading in health, leading in habit, and ultimately then being very conscious of how you lead in history and the impact that you have on the world. We're going to take it in turns to go through each of those 5 areas during this webinar, share with you some of our observations very top line, and you can download our white paper from our website, which gives you a lot more detail about it. And we'll be asking you a couple of questions using the whiteboard, using some tools and techniques as well, some polls to try and keep this engaging. And hopefully, you know, if you're doing any sort of webinar with your teams as well, you'll get some hints and techniques on and how you might keep it engaging, which we hope this will be over the next 45 minutes or so. So handing over to Angela, I believe you're going to talk about leading in head and what that means. Angela, are you there? We can't hear you.
Hey,
Angela, we just missed the beginning then, so just go crack on from the start.
Okay, so leading in head, one of the key practices in 4.0 leadership, it's always been important to lead in head. And again, when we run leadership programs, leading in head was always a critical part. As I was saying before, you put your strategy together, you have to analyze the data, you have to put your operational plan together, manage resources and so on. So leading in head will always be critical, but it's taking on a new meaning now. So it's about finding definition in volatility and uncertainty. So leadership 4.0 is about spending time ensuring you're solving the right problem. The number of times we've seen people being busy and coming out with all sorts of plans and what have you, and developing solutions, and look what we've achieved, is actually, are you actually solving the right problem? Are you actually creating what your customer wants and healing their pain? We talk about failing fast as well. So, and what we mean by that is not absolutely, you know, not underperforming and not you know, failing fast in terms of experimenting, trying new things, and then learning from them really quickly. So not failing big, but failing small and often, and learning constantly so that you can develop more ideas and the solution to the right problem. I've talked about agile mindsets before, and the leaders that we spoke to who were really leading well, they were always thinking. They were always evolving their thinking, and they were always doing it by talking to people inside their organization, talking to people outside their organization, seeing what the competition was doing, but also looking at industries that seemed to have no bearing on their particular organization, but actually they could learn their ideas from them too. So they'd always have their finger on the pulse and know what was going on. They always seem to be constantly curious and always looking to develop themselves, and always looking to make happen to me. They set stretching targets, so always motivating their teams through the stretching targets and making sure their teams had the right attitude, skills and capabilities, and really focused on the needs, pains and desires of their customers. So we've got another question for you now. In these disrupted times, how will you stay close to your customers and your stakeholders?
The same methodology as before. We're going to ask you to make comments in the chat box, and then we will type them up on the whiteboard. And I had a note from Paul to say I had a glow around me, so just wipe the camera, so hopefully there's no longer what is it, a romantic haze surrounding you. There's always a romantic haze surrounding me.
It's your halo, Mark.
How will you stay close to your customers? I mean, I can share what I was doing actually to kind of help people. So we, yeah, well, it's the same as Paul, just having a catch up with them to start. I think, you know, we had a large piece of business cancelled just over a week ago. And I've been checking in and texting the client overnight and just saying, how you doing? How was the day? I know it's been a tough day. I've seen what's going on in the news. It's affected you. How are you doing personally?
There's a good one there from Natalie. Natalie, I'd love to know, how do you go about finding customer feedback? Do you talk to them directly? Do you use surveys? Do you use industry insights?
Yeah, use the voice of customer feedback.
Surveys and talking
Surveys,
to them.
yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
And when we teach our innovation programs, or actually when we solve innovation challenges for our clients, it's all based on gathering real insight, and that is about listening to the voice of your customer and their need, whether it's expressed or unexpressed. Social media, yeah. Looking at those hashtags, what's trending, absolutely. And you got Yaroslav, I'm doing my best to use various ways of communicating: emails, calls, videos, survey, chat, and sharing some content. Great. I mean, you're really on it. And I think sharing that content, absolutely. So, you know, we, as soon as all this kind of, you know, remote working started kicking off a couple of weeks ago, we sent out some hints and tips to our clients, things that we've done. We've run our projects over the last couple of years. You know, we're a commercial business, but there was no commercial side to that. It was, this is work for us, it might help you, and let you know there's a way through this.
It's nice to see someone who was on our last webinar practicing what we were talking about. Thank you.
Paul, you've got virtual water coolers via Zoom at intervals. And I said cheese because actually I was talking to a CEO of another innovation company in Toronto. He used to be a colleague of mine at an agency we both worked in New York. And she was running virtual cheese and wine with people. So they all decided to buy the same cheese, get the same wine, and have a virtual cheese and wine night because they're isolated. So there's loads of things. Oh, sold, says Paul. There's loads of things you can do virtually. We were sending each other virtual hugs in our 9 and our 2 p.m. catch-ups with the team today. And Sarah Cox, webinar and remote facilitation of meetings and workshops. Yeah. Using this opportunity to engage those who are located at a distance and to encourage conversation within organizations that typically take place. Absolutely, fantastic. So actually, this might be an opportunity to be more inclusive. I was thinking, actually, there's a lot of things that remote workers have, tools and techniques and point of views that maybe traditionally get overlooked in organizations. We should look to them. But how do they work effectively remotely? And actually, we're all going to be in their shoes, so understand their world a little bit more. We've got, for Madeleine, with touch points, trying to focus primarily on their perspective and create moments of joy. Lovely. I love the idea of creating moments of joy on their perspective. And then Jez says, share stories about what we're all experiencing. Get emotional. I think be honest. Yeah, absolutely. I've shared a couple of examples there about things that have happened to us. We're doing a webinar later on this week for G1st, where I'll talk through as a small business owner what we've been doing and putting in place over the last couple of weeks. So I think people respond to truth and honesty and authenticity. Try to reply with funny memes. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Share good news stories. Thank you for that, Yesem. Absolutely. So things I noticed on Breakfast News this morning, they were sharing some fun things as well. And, you know, 2 penguins walking around an empty aquarium. They were getting a tour of the aquarium just because they could, and it was nice. Paul, one more secure business owner I know has offered to still work for some clients on the basis they'll get paid if possible in the future. Absolutely, it's a real opportunity, I think, to build relationships with people. That won't be everybody be able to do it, but that's great. Trini Woodall uses Instagram. Oh yes, I remember Instagram Live to share content, interact with her followers. For example, this afternoon, she's doing a meditation with an expert live and inviting people to join her to manage stress. That's wonderful. Trini and Susanna.
Is that
Trini and Susanna, I believe. And then Jez, again, and in allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we discover each other. Yes, customer, clients, partners, and suppliers. We're all human. Absolutely. Laura, my yoga teacher, is streaming online this evening. Joe, you were looking at Balance and Breathe. They were doing online yoga. Based in the Rhondda Valley, but we're watching it. It's global, absolutely. Doing a yoga class online Monday night. Fantastic. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Some real great examples of how we are getting in our customer shoes and some tips that we could perhaps take away as well. Lovely, super. So moving on from moving in head, the second practice is about leading in heart, and this is a lot of what we talked about there was actually about the emotional connections. This is about being a really authentic leader. And at the moment, I think an authentic leader needs to be honest about their emotions. At times, it's okay to be a bit vulnerable. And it's okay also at times to say, I don't necessarily have the answers. 4.0 leaders actually don't always have the answers. They know the right questions to ask. They know how to manage their state as appropriate to that time, and therefore are authentic in the way they lead people, and people trust them because they lead in this authentic heart. So in terms of a bit more detail around what leading in heart means and what we've seen in leaders who lead in disrupted times, they believe in themselves. They have an innate confidence, not an arrogance, but they have a confidence, a stillness, a quietness, a belief in what they do. And they believe in others. They're not afraid to let others shine. They believe in the potential of others. They bring in diverse and different points of view. And they're able to take both the strength in themselves and the potential they see in others, and congregate that around a passion for what they do individually and collectively together. They are really energized, and they energize others through their values and their sense of purpose. All the 4.0 leaders we spoke to understand what they stand for. They understand their duvet chuck. They know why they get out of bed to come to work in the morning. A lot of them actually had quite deep and spiritual conversations around why they believe they were put on this earth. They had a realization or an understanding as to why they existed on the planet, or what their purpose for existing was. They also are able to look across their teams and across wider organizations and appreciate that people bring different skills and different motivations and actually different backgrounds, playing again into this piece around diversity, to their team. They understand the individual motivations and aspirations of their people, and they're able to construct work that inspires, creates personal duvet chucks for people. They're able to link the organization's higher purpose and why it exists in the world to that team members' motivations and the role that they do. And they're through being open and honest about what their team's skills are, motivation levels, and energizing and inspiring people around the organization and their individual sense of purpose. They're able to build really high levels of trust because people believe them. They're authentic, they're vulnerable. Sometimes it can be a bit messy and a bit soupy, but they're very honest about what's happening in their world so that people give them some slack, go with them, and follow them into the light. So at the moment, you might have a number of team members who are uncertain, who are unclear about what the future is. You may be a leader who's experiencing that either in your own business, in your own small business, or within a function that you lead in a larger organization. I'm just interested, again, using our whiteboard. What are you doing to reassure and build that trust in your team at the moment? If anyone can share some examples, again, in the chat box, we'd love to hear them. Or have they heard something, have they experienced it where a leader has actually, with them, reassured them and improved their trust levels? And again, if you'd like to type any comments in the box. So Angela talks about encouraging openness, being open and transparent. Absolutely. And sometimes that's going to be hard. We might have to talk about things that are grey, ambiguous, not completely landed on yet. Alan, less about what we're doing, but rather what we're doing it for. Yeah, absolutely. So again, that link to the purpose. What's the end game as opposed to what's the immediacy happening now? Because actually what's happening now and happening day to day is changing continuously. Natalie talks about daily video calls with a cup of coffee for home working that allows teams to express their feelings and concerns and convey current guidelines, as well as setting out and reprioritizing work. Yeah, well, as I said, we're doing a 9 and 2 o'clock check-in. Yes, I'm drafting hopefully inspiring email to them as we speak. Oh, inspired by you, thank you. Oh, sorry, don't wish my name. Oh, sorry. Right at the end. I'm sure you will inspire them. You've always inspired us at the Growth Hub, yes. You've got Foster, checking in on how people are feeling and have everything they need to work at home. I think that's a really important thing. It's not just the health and safety bit, and not just do you have enough printer paper, but do you have a safe place to work? Are you okay? What's going on in terms of your family, your friends around you? Do you have what you need? And are you getting some fresh air? Are you making sure, we've talked to the team about, are you making sure you get a bit of a break, that you don't necessarily merge work and home continuously?
There was one there about genuine interest in others, in showing genuine interest, as opposed to feigned interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And showing you care rather than just about work. Talking daily, encouraging people to take time to get in the flow. It doesn't have to work related, absolutely. So
Comedy mugs.
yeah. I've got some B cups here. Using comedy mugs, as Laura says, for our cups of tea for daily huddles. Yeah, absolutely, bring a smile to each other's face and starting the day with a smile, because watching the news at the moment, it's hard to smile through some of it.
Foster, just this might be something everyone else understands, but you mentioned doing one-to-one skip level meetings on Zoom. What do you mean by skip level? Just for anyone who maybe doesn't know, because I don't. And I think and then there's one from Yaroslav as well.
So Yaroslav says, in Poland, being a leader is somehow connected with hierarchy, whilst I enjoyed that elsewhere good leaders are much more approachable. Yeah, this builds better relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Being approachable and not necessarily relying on the hierarchy because I'm a VP or I'm an SVP or a director of that my word goes, because we all have a point of view and we're all being impacted by what's happening at the moment.
That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks, Foster. Thanks for
talking to managers.
Yeah.
Great. So some really nice examples there.
And Laura's just shared a link, which you'd be more than welcome to click on. Those links in the comment box, by the way, they work, so you can click through and take a look at those later. And what we'll do is we'll take all the links that get shared in the chat and put them into the email later as well.
Fantastic. So that's thank you for engaging in that so fully. Great to hear how we are working hard to reassure our teams and build trust. I'm going to hand back to Angela, I believe now, who is going to take us through a poll.
A poll with my trusted assistant Joe here, who's the one who knows what he's doing. We're going to ask you some more questions. We're really getting you to think today, aren't we? So our first question is, we'd like you to think about what you've heard about head and heart. We're looking at certain leadership activities, one of which is holding a team meeting. Now, these days it might be holding a virtual team meeting, up to you to choose. Now, what you to think about, would you say that activity was all head, mainly heart, or all heart? You have 20 seconds to choose.
Well, we've got always
results are coming in. Yeah, it really is.
I feel like welcome to the Eurovision Song Contest. The results from Ankara are
Charlotte Graham Norton.
So
we've had a few. Give it a few more seconds.
Yeah, gosh, that's great. Here we go. Yeah.
So probably do a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, look.
Oh, people are sneaking in. Oh!
Okay.
And the head wins.
Here we are.
It's interesting. I wonder if we asked that question a month ago, whether it would be any different. But that's reassuring to know. Interested to know what made you choose mainly head or mainly heart, or not choose all head or all heart?
Part of Eurovision. Yeah, it's certainly better than the music.
One by
head. Nice.
And I think they're quite close in that, in terms of people. I think from the fact that we had a bit of a 6% between them. 6%.
Yeah.
So another one.
Yeah. So next poll is on its way. Here we go. Poll 2.
The next activity is coming up, and it's always the same questions. Is it all head, mainly heart, or all heart? So conducting a one-to-one. Which you're going to go for on this one?
7% of you have voted, 11% have voted, 30% have voted. The vote's creeping up.
Yeah.
Can we get it over 50% of people are actually going to push the button? We're at 46. Come on, there's a few. We're at 50.
We're at 50.
Little wins, over 50%. There are 12 people that still haven't voted yet.
All right, we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2.
Get one more.
1.
No.
Oh, so that was mainly heart on that one. Again, I wonder how different that would have been a month ago. But interesting combination there. Again, have we got any comments? No, you're too busy thinking. Too busy thinking. Okay.
Should we bring up the next one?
Let's bring up the next one.
Okay.
Again, it's going to be another activity. Again, the same 4 choices. This time, having a conversation about improving performance.
Some results coming in. Keep them coming. So we've had about the same number of people completed as before. So I'm going to say just 3, 2, 1.
Boom. So it keeps statistically significant.
Yeah.
So mainly head on that one. We do tend to get more people voting head than heart with that one. Mainly because people talk about, well, there's a certain process you have to go through, there are legalities and so on. So tend to use their head more, but good to see some heart in there as well. But this is about people and engaging them to improve their performance. So thank you for that one. Should we do the last one?
Yeah. And feel free to add any comments. And if you've got a comment about a specific question, just indicate that at the start of the comment and we'll take a look at them as we carry on. So the 4th question is up now.
Checking in with customers and colleagues.
Cool. And we're well on the way.
Over 50% vote.
Yeah.
That's good. That's fantastic. It was enough to leave.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh.
We need a few more if anyone has got a thought on this.
Few more.
I'll give you 5 seconds. I'll give you 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and the poll's closed.
Oh, that's so exciting, isn't it? Mainly heart on that one.
Oh,
that's interesting, isn't it? Again, would you have scored that the same a month ago? And it's really interesting that, you know, every time you run a poll like this, you'll get different results according to what's going on in the world and what's going on in individuals' worlds at the moment.
Can I just throw something in on that point, Angela, on that one in particular? So a lot of my job at the Innovation Beehive is marketing and also sales. And one of the acronyms in sales is ABS, which stands for anything but sales. Now, I don't ever operate that way, but I've always approached conversations thinking, what am I going to get out of this? What's the outcome here? But actually, since everything happened over the last few weeks, we're in such uncertain times that I would have been mainly head, a couple of weeks ago, mainly head, but with a bit of heart. But now I'm actually all heart because I'm not thinking what's the outcome. I'm simply thinking this interaction is important for its own sake. And that's been a real shift for me. And it feels like a strangely liberating shift, actually, really, really positive. And I think you're right. I think there would have been a real shift in perspective. Certainly if my story is anything to go by, that change from thinking there has to be an outcome to thinking, you know what, we're all in this together and let's just be there for each other.
Yeah, and the outcome in a way is, can I make that person feel better having just had a conversation with me?
Yeah.
Suddenly becomes more important, doesn't it?
Yeah, and of course one of the values of the Innovation Beehive is we love our clients. So I should have been doing that all along, really.
You have been. You've been loving them by offering them things they could buy. But I mean, I've heard you today saying we'll do that for you.
Thank you for that.
And making sure that you can don't worry about paying for it. We'll do that for you because we know you need it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've offered to do these webinars for a client of ours who we worked with for a number of years, but is going to struggle. They're in the hospitality industry. And I said, anything we can do for your teams around remote working from home, head, heart leadership for your leaders across the business, we will just do for you because they have a concept called the 3-legged stool, which is around the organization and the employees, their suppliers and their customers. And when it's a 3-legged stool, we have to rise to the occasion in times like this and really support them so that they can then carry on paying our wages and our mortgages and our bills when we all get through this.
Lovely. A key point that we wanted to illustrate there was just that it's the combination of head and heart that's important. So in every activity you do, just want you to think about, should I be using more head than heart at the moment, or in this situation, or with this person right now in this moment? So so thank you for doing that. It was really, really fun to watch.
So Angela, I
Okay.
think you're going to take us through health.
I am going to take us through health. We talked before about how important it was to build resilience in your teams, and what we found with successful leaders was that they really spent time looking after themselves as well as their teams. So you know, they say you should always put your own oxygen mask on first. Well, they did that. They looked after themselves, and they role modeled looking after yourself. And we don't just mean that in terms of their physical health, but also their mental health, so that they could, you know, cope in these uncertain times, because it is a stressful time, and we do need to always be looking out for each other. So the key things that we found from them were that they really lifted their heads from the go, go, go. So they actually made sure they had time to say, right, and we've all got a long to-do list, but I need to step away, spend some time for myself. And there were, you know, key leaders who'd say, I actually have to have 10 minutes walking to work. So I, you know, park my car, or I cycle, or what have you, but I actually need that 10 minutes, and it's just my clearing time. I need a clear head before I start work. Other leaders were, I don't make important decisions after 5 o'clock. I'm a leader, and one of the most important things I do is make decisions. So I do not make them after 5 o'clock, because my head's just not in a great place. So so they really lift their head from the go, go, go. And really invested time in looking after themselves and checking in with their team. What did well-being look like for them? Because what's right for one person isn't right for everybody else. And you probably heard the phrase of being psychologically safe. I don't know if that's something you've heard lately. But what they were really, really good at was making it safe for people to be themselves, and to be able to bring themselves to work and express their true feelings, as well as be able to share ideas in a safe place. Something that seems really, really important, you know, more and more important now. And so what it meant was, because they looked after themselves and their teams were in a good place, their teams were there to support them, and it enabled them to always bring their best self to the occasion, whether it was, you know, a conference, a meeting, a decision that needed to be made. They brought their best self every time and enabled others to do the same. So Joe, I don't know if you can put up the PowerPoint again so people can see the question. But again, we've got another question for you. And what we'd like to know is, what will you do to manage your state? And by that we mean your emotional and physical state. So in these trying times ahead, what are you going to do to manage yourself and make sure you can bring your best self to work? And how might you support others to do so? So again, pop it in the chat box, and we'll capture that.
I had a personal win last weekend. I've been doing the Couch to 5K app. And after a rather crappy week, I actually achieved my goal of my first 5K run on a Saturday morning, and I'm going to carry on doing that. I know that some mornings I won't feel like it, but I had a personal win there, which I had to celebrate at the end of a bad week. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run out my stress. That's what I'm going to do in the mornings. What else do we have? Angela, can you see the chat box?
Got here. Exercise every day.
Yeah, great. Well done.
Yeah.
Try to Natalie says, try to retain a routine, exercise, self-care, learning online, attending sessions such as these. Great. We'll be doing many over the next couple of weeks, so do come along to them, or our Facebook Lives. Eating well. What have you got here? We do a Monday lunchtime running as well. Laurie, yes, running club, led by the team admin. You've got Selena. Oh, thank you. Well done on the 5K. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of myself. Gone down 2 notches on my belt. Yaroslav, I purchased a high stock of comfort food snacks. Marvellous. If you're living in a city, Uber, Deliveroo, others are available. Tanya, set up a group chat and encourage others to talk and look after each other. Yeah, we've got a Team Nonsense group chat. Foster, plenty of virtual social contact. You've got Laura talking about turmeric tea for me and my mates. Wonderful. Haven't discovered it yet. It's fantastic. Erin, pre and post workout walks to get out of the house, to warm up or switch off, and encourage teams to do the same. My father worked from home. He used to get out in the morning, walk up the street, walk back, because he walked to work. Natalie, getting dressed and made up. Yes, absolutely. So I feel good. I wore a business shirt today rather than a t-shirt and a pair of tracksuit bottoms, because I'm at work, even though I'm in a dining room.
Good one from
Yeah.
Alan there.
Alan, stop when stopping is required. Yes, absolutely. Knowing when you should stop. That, you know, trying to find in your physical space as well if possible. If you don't have the space to have a separate room, actually put the work away. So you know, we talk about being always on. I mean, the danger is that we will carry on being more always on now because we're working in the space we're living in. Foster, I heard a psychologist recently say that you need to do 5 pleasurable things a day as humans have a negativity bias, and you need to outdo it for nice things, so 1 bad. Oh, that's nice. 4 nice things or 1 bad. So got it. That's more exciting than 5 veg a day. I've got to say. Thanks very much, Foster. And yes, I'm talking about choosing who you spend time with. Absolutely. Yeah. You are your mates. My Irish grandmother used to say, you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. Look at your friends and I'll tell you who you are, she used to say. And being super choosy about what information I digest. Yeah, it's a personal choice about whether you want to listen to the news in the morning and things like that. I have at times just turned the news cycle off. Not that I don't want to know information. I can get breakthrough stuff on the phone, but do I want to have that endless dialogue of people saying I feel isolated, whatever it is? And call things, talk about other things than work. Yeah, thank you very much, Jodie.
That point, Foster, about the 4 nice things to 1 bad thing reminds me of there's something about the number of positive things that you need to do in an interaction if you've made a negative impact on someone, and it's an even bigger ratio, you know, that. And I wonder if there's any relationship in the psychology between those 2 things. I'm sort of thinking out loud now, and I wouldn't necessarily expect you to know the answer, but if you do, that would be interesting. And did you get this one about Natalie from Natalie? Yeah.
So some great examples there. Thank you, and really proactively. And anything that we do for others as well. I mean, a lot of those around what we're doing. Anything that we can do for others to help promote our health. Anything in the chat box. I think calling people and not just talking about work and just saying, hey, I'm just checking in. I sent a couple of notes to people today and said, hey, checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I'm thinking of you. And I certainly have got much more desire when I've been so busy over the last couple of months, traveling. I may not have called as many of my old friends as I might want to. I'm going to be ringing them. I've got more thoughts to that.
Yeah. Great.
And then Foster, I'll post some links to the human negativity bias and how to counter it. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you put those in the chat, Foster, I'll make sure they go into the email. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Great. We're getting much more knowledge being shared here. That's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so if we share those and move on to the last practice, or penultimate practice really, which is around leading in habit. So leading in habit is all about being really conscious of what you do and how you come across and the impact that you have on other people. And those leaders who are what we call the 4.0 leaders are very flexible in their style. They're able to be conscious of their own energy, their own state, and how they impact on others, and flex according to who they're talking to. Now, that is not about flexing the message. It is about flexing by understanding how to best get the message over to the person they are talking to. Now, there is a challenge, and I've got down there the consistency dichotomy. There could be a challenge there that you as a leader might see to be saying different things to different people. What you are doing is you're understanding how someone best takes in this information. You're flexing your style to that. You might be flexing the technology that you use, but all the time you're being true to your authentic self, true to the purpose of you and your own value set. So you're not negating that whilst flexing perhaps the language you use, the technology you use, or the words that you use when you're talking to someone. Alongside that, that we often see leaders who thrive in these very disruptive and ambiguous times, create iconic actions to support it. Something that really signifies that what they're talking about is important, and they create an action that implements it. So there could be small iconic actions like taking 2 times a day just to check in with your team and say there's no agenda, just how are you doing? Organizations who create iconic actions, a great example is IKEA. They are all about being smart and thrifty. And so as part of that, they want to recruit people who are smart and thrifty. An iconic action there is in their recruitment process, they ask people about the interest rate on their credit card. because smart and thrifty people know the interest rate on their credit card. They're all about democratizing design, about creating a better everyday life for the many people. So another couple of iconic actions they have is the many people don't fly business class, and no one's flying at the moment, but the many people don't fly business class. So everyone, regardless if you're a CEO or as someone on a management development program, everybody flies economy in IKEA. And also nobody has a designated parking space. No one, because of their rank, can park closer to the office building door than anyone else. So an iconic action to support it. It'd be interesting to think, are there any iconic actions that you can create over the next couple of weeks to really support your people? And be really aware of your impact on others and how you might need to adapt your style. There's a great example we had earlier on about the COO talking about their mental health. So thank you to that, for sharing that example. That's a real iconic action. Here's my personal mental health journey. And then because we believe mental health is important. And that to me is a definition of authentic leadership, which is really at the core of what Leadership 4.0 is all about. So we're going to ask you, guess what? Another question. And we're going to go into our whiteboard as well. If you can pop your comments in the chat box. Thinking about the way that the world of work has changed at the moment, what new habits do you need to adopt to be able to respond as a leader to what's required of you in this new way of working? What habits do you think you might need to adopt to do that? Again, your comments in the chat box. One habit for me is showing people my dining room. we might end up showing people far more about who we are as individuals and our lives and our choice in art or our choice in wallpaper or our choice in mirrors, whatever it might be. Communicating more often, says Angela. Thank you very much.
And I just did a little typo, and I'm going to write it again because I quite like that. Communicate.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm sure I haven't coined that phrase, but there you go.
I think you might have done. I think we're going to. Yaroslav again, how to inspire and engage others remotely, really conscious and thinking about how you inspire. Because most of us have had some sort of training or experience of running a face-to-face meetings. It's quite different. I can't see all you guys, and neither can Angela. We're hoping you're there and not with one eye on BBC News or on your phones. Showing vulnerability. Thank you, Fiona. That's true. You don't have an answer. Absolutely, and that's again right at the very beginning. 4.0 leaders, they know the questions to ask, but they're actually comfortable saying, "I don't know." And particularly at the moment, an answer may emerge over a number of hours. Tanya, plan your day to keep focus when working from home for the foreseeable. Absolutely, it can be really easy to say, "I'm just going to pop that load on. Got to empty the dishwasher, take the dog for a walk," and before you know it, the day is gone or the morning is gone. So having some structure and process and maybe contracting with your partner or your flatmates about how you're going to work. Alan Knight, listening before starting to manage. Yeah. Listening first, absolutely. Seeking first to understand before you seek to be understood. Marvellous, thank you very much. I love that. Joe, you have to say that.
Well, there's keep calm and carry on, or there's keep calm and love the bees.
Yay!
I'm going with love the bees.
Absolutely.
The thing about keeping calm is there's all sorts of, I guess, ways of doing that, aren't there? Practices that you can adopt, and part of that is not just having the mantra, although the mantra might be part of your way of doing it. But does anyone have any tips that they could share on how to stay calm in these sort of uncertain times?
So you've got Yaroslav, master the skills on using new technology. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good point, actually.
Sarah, be honest that you don't have the answer of how best to get to your goal, but show confidence in the collaborative process and the skill of your team to figure it out the best direction. Yeah, absolutely. I think, pretending that we have all the answers at the moment, it's not going to fool anyone. And if anything, it's going to raise our stress levels up and people's expectations of us. So being honest around, I don't have the answer, but I'll sit with you during this time of complexity. I will, as Brené Brown says, I will recognize the emotion that you are feeling at the moment. And I will, in the spirit of transparency, give you all the information that I have and give you answers as they emerge. Jodie, get to know people individually, learning about them outside of work and what else might be influencing or impacting them. Absolutely. We have one of our team members' sons join us today. And no doubt we'll have a dog or two running around throwing WebExes over the next couple of weeks. So what? People will get to meet my dog Chaucer. How fantastic.
Sarah, I just want to check that I summarised your point concisely and correctly there. What I took from it was about showing confidence in the process. So in the fact that you're collaborating, have confidence in that. Is that right? Cool. Perfect.
That's right, she says. Lovely. Super. Okay, so those are the 4 practices of Leadership 4.0, but they all ultimately point to what we're calling the end game, which is around making history. This is, what kind of world do you want to leave behind you when you are no longer in a position to lead teams, and maybe when you're no longer here. We are only here for a short period of time, very conscious perhaps all of us of that at the moment. But how do you want to be remembered? What sort of impact do you want to have on the world? Those people that you serve in your leadership position, how do you want them to think of you in the time to come in the future? So a couple of things that I found 4.0 leaders talk about a lot is they talk about how their leadership impacts on a number of stakeholders, not just on the financial and the P&L, not just on maximizing shareholder return. What they talked about, yes, that's important, and it's kind of a given, but they highlighted it's about the impact their leadership has on their people, about how it has on what it has on the wider community, and ultimately more and more around what it has on the planet, and how we can use our skills for good, how we can use our scale for good, and how we can have a positive impact on the planet. If anything positive is coming out at this awful time, I was looking last night at the news, and there are fish in the canal in Venice for the first time in many years, and I have to say that sent me to bed with a smile on my face. So there's a positive something happening in the planet there. They are very conscious around when their time of leading is up, they want to leave the world in a better place, and that influences both their big strategic decisions but also their small day-to-day decisions, and start to think about what are all the interconnectivities of the people I lead, the community they exist in, and the planet in which we all have to live, impact of this decision. And that consciousness of the impact that you have and the history that you make as a leader inspires others in their role, even if they don't have leadership roles, to think and be conscious around how they impact on their colleagues rather than the people they lead, how they impact and operate in the community in which the organization lives and in which they live, and ultimately on how the planet is impacted by them existing. So in terms of a question to think about, there are many questions to think about, and the leaders that I talked to in 4.0 tended to think about these 7 questions here. I'd like you to take a moment and to think and identify one of the questions here on the screen that most speaks to you, and think about how you might want to answer it. Now, you don't have to necessarily share that with us, but we'd like, if you could, in the chat box to say which question you're answering, and then you're thinking about, and potentially what your answer might be. So what difference could your leadership have on your community? How will your leadership make a positive difference to the people in your team? When you look back in 20 years, what's the biggest change you'd love your leadership to have made? What could you do to encourage others to make a positive difference? What do you want to be remembered for? What habits will you adopt to ensure you make a positive difference every day? And how you ensure your leadership makes a positive impact on the world? Just a small few questions at the end of our webinar here, but how do you want to make history? How would you answer one of those questions? Again, your comments and your thoughts in the chat box, please.
And whilst you're thinking about that, I'd love to just throw in a point about the making history piece. So there's a concept that has become quite a big name in the corporate world recently. People talk about B Corps, or they talk about the triple bottom line, which is a way of companies formalizing their CSR and their commitments to the environment and to sustainability, etc. And I think part of the making history piece for leaders is actually that even if your company isn't committing to these things, you can still make a difference. And you know, I sit in a small team, and I have one person who is in my team, and you know, the difference that I can make from where I sit right now is on that person and on the people in the team around me. And a lot of the people that we talked to when we were developing this Leadership 4.0 framework, a lot of the people that we talked to were not the sort of board level members of members of boards.
Not always.
Not always. No. Sometimes we talk to, you know, managers of quick service restaurants, or, you know, supervisors in shops, because actually they hold a really unique place in that they have a huge impact on young people often who are sort of maybe in their first job. And the difference that I worked in a Burger King over the summer when I was in my first year of university, and that was a real formative time, because you know, I had to be there. I had a job to do, and I had a boss who helped me do the job, and they made a difference to me. And you know, making history isn't just about the grand gestures and the grand changes you make. Sometimes it's about those small things that those small differences you can make to individuals.
And role modeling the behaviors that leaders, that sort of role modeling of behaviors. I know you talked positively about that experience that has turned you hopefully into the leader you are today, where you inspire your team member and positively impact on the rest of us as a team.
Hopefully, and I think she's on here, so she can tell me if I'm wrong.
Does anyone want to share which question they answered? So Yaroslav, it would be, if we want others to remember me for one thing, this would be, he was the one who was always helpful and available to support when we needed that. So others would help the next generation the same way. That's lovely. That's more than just increased shareholder value. Looking back in 20 years, having changed the way people think. Yeah, thank you, Alan. Yeah, really challenge people, help change the way people think, and hopefully bring them to a place they might not have otherwise got to in their thinking. Super, lovely. Has anyone else got anyone else that would like to share one? We've got one here from Alga Rosata. I will concentrate on the question related to the habits. In the end, the difference I will make is related to everyday behavior and everyday habits. Yeah, absolutely. It's not necessarily about as Joe said, the grand gestures. And you know, I did speak to CEOs and people who do lead the learning and development functions for over 100,000 people in the UK. But I also, as you said, we also spoke to people that work as shift leaders in department stores and in retail outlets. So thank you so much. More questions there to ponder. And I think, you know, particularly at the moment, thinking about how can we come through this disrupted time as positively as we can be, using it to lead our teams positively into the light and to stay resilient. And when this current situation ends, thinking about the positive impact that we can have on the world through the unique positions that we have. So Leadership 4.0, leading in disrupted times. There's always a piece around leading in head. You have to have the numbers, the structures, the right processes and the systems in place, and get yourself to understand who your customer is and what product, service, brand, experience, need, pain, desire you can solve for them. But it's also more now around leading in heart, around being very clear about what your personal value set is, understanding the motivations and the heart of your colleagues, linking yourself into the higher purpose of the organization, and really feeling that your duvet chuck is there, your reason for getting out of bed in the morning is aligned to the reason for the organization existing. And then helping and inspiring your colleagues so they're able to see how their personal motivations and value set links in with the organization's values and purpose in the world. To be able to do that, it's around remaining resilient, around being healthy, around taking care of yourself so you can take care of your colleagues. In this research, over 70% of the CEOs or leaders that we spoke to had some form of health practice, be it meditation, be it Couch to 5K Run, or be it a Calm app. They consciously made choices around better health, even if it's when I land in a foreign country, the first thing I do after I check into the hotel is go for a run. That's the one thing I always do when I travel internationally. But it's also, as well as taking care of your own health, it's about being able to spot stress in others, taking care of others. operating in a high performance business is different from operating in a stressful business. So making sure you can spot the difference between performance and stress. And then being conscious of how you impact on others, the way your language, your energy, the habits that you demonstrate in your leadership of people on a day-to-day basis, and being able to flex those habits in the event of situations such as we find ourselves on a global scale, or just in a conversation with a team member one-on-one. What language will work for them? What's their personal motivation? How do they like to be addressed? How can I flex my style whilst remaining true to myself and staying clear on the message to get the best possible communication way to this individual? And ultimately the end game. Why are we doing this? Is it just do you want to have on your tombstone, I increased the shareholder price? Fantastic, you might have that in the size of your house, but that and more. What impact will you have on the world? Why were you given this position and this unique opportunity and privilege to lead people? And what history will your existence as a leader make on the planet?
Wow. So thank you to Mark and Angela, and thank you to everyone for participating so actively in the webinar. That is Leadership 4.0, and if you want to read more, you can access the white paper on our website. And I have said on the slide there that the link is in the chat box. It's not there yet. If you go to innovationbeehive.co.uk, and on the home page, you will see this image, the Leadership 4.0 image, appear there. And you can click on the download button, and that will take you to download the Leadership 4.0 white paper. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to on this slide is that there's a QR code. Now, I was always dubious about QR codes because I thought you had to download an app to scan them. But it turns out with some update certainly on iPhones recently, all you need to do is put your phone up to the screen and it'll open the QR code link. And what that link will take you to is a virtual delivery group. So this is for people who are now working from home, or people who are seeking to, or people who are leading people who are working from home. And we're just sharing best practice, we're sharing tips, we're sharing our experiences, the tough times, the good times. You're more than welcome to join us in that group. It's becoming a bit of a community for people who are working from home.
People are posting pictures of where they're working from home. People are posting HBR articles. People are just posting comments. It's just a little hub for us online at the moment to create this sense of community, and particularly around virtual working. Have you got something else?
Well, yeah, there's just one that was posted this morning. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's apparently Isaac Newton was home working because of a plague in 1665. And he discovered gravity as a result. So who knows what we're going to discover.
Fantastic. What a fantastic way to end. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We will send through this recording on email and some more resources, all of the links. And also we'll be running a webinar a week over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Sometimes more. Yeah, so keep an eye out. We'll send you information, the link. Share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends, share it with your family members. We just want to make sure that we all keep connecting in with each other during these very disrupted times. And hopefully you've taken away some practices this afternoon that will help you to lead your teams in these difficult times towards the light. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.